Good afternoon, Dr. Sen. Thanks for your time today. It's great to be able to share your knowledge and all the innovation in the cannabis field.
Thank you for having me. Great to speak with you.
So, would you please share with us a little bit of your path, your career until here?
So, I am a microbiologist and biochemist by training. I received my PhD from Princeton University in 1974. I was in academic research as a faculty member at the National Institutes of Health, which is in Bethesda, Maryland, followed by a faculty position at Scripps Clinic in La Jolla. And my primary areas were cancer research, cancer diagnosis. In 1980-81, I left academia and started a company with a bunch of other professors from University of California, Los Angeles. It was a biotechnology company, and this is the early days of biotechnology industry in the US. So through that and a couple of other companies, I spent approximately 25 years in biotechnology and pharmaceutical companies doing drug discovery, regulatory approval, new technologies, and so on and so forth. All of those were focused on cancer and tissue degeneration like osteoporosis. In 2005, 2006, I left the biopharmaceutical industry and got involved in nutritionals, nutraceuticals, because my philosophy changed and my thought was, would it not be nice to be able to prevent or slow down many of the chronic diseases as opposed to discovering drugs that treat disease? So having done the disease treatment for about 25 years, I thought I'd switch to the other half. And so over the last 16 years, we have primarily developed I would call two technology platforms. One is surrounding minerals and vitamins. And these, as you know, are pure molecules that have been isolated. They're produced either by fermentation or processing of other natural products. And my only focus was to have all of these molecules, whether it's a vitamin, it's a mineral, to be able to put it in a water solution. And as you probably know, there are many minerals that can exist in either insoluble form, like the calcium in your bone and teeth, but they can also exist in water soluble form, like the calcium in your blood. So we focused on the water soluble forms. In parallel, we also started working on natural products from plants. Plants have been incredibly rich sources of many, many beneficial compounds, including many that are now converted into pharmaceutical drugs. It's much easier and most likely safer to consume natural products in a juice form or juice blend form than to go to a doctor, have a prescription, have an injection, or have a pill of one single molecule.
Isolated, right?
Exactly. Because once isolated, it can start behaving very, very differently. So single molecules, single ingredients from a natural source are more suitable as a pharmaceutical drug, because in that field, the molecule is studied for upwards of 8 to 10 years to determine dosage, activity, stability, formulation, you name it, so that all the properties of that or those molecules are very well known. They're controlled and monitored by physicians or hospitals, so there are no side effects. We basically felt that if we could produce whole plant, whole fruit, whole leaf, whole flower type extracts, wherein we knew what the benefits of that plant was. So our mission was we would get water soluble extracts from many of these plants. We already were in parallel developing vitamins and minerals. So the thought was, okay, how could we improve upon or create a more comprehensive blend of natural product that would have a desired health benefit, be it helping people go to sleep, like chamomile, lavender, etc., have been used to help people go to sleep. Valerian root has been used to help people go to sleep. But on the other extreme, you have drugs, all the benzodiazepines from Valium to Xanax. Those are drugs to help you go to sleep. So our philosophy was, wouldn't it be nice to take a natural course of action to simply support the sleep process so that instead of having to have sleep deprivation and resort to drugs, you always had reasonably good sleep pattern. And the same thing goes true literally for every single wellness feature of a human, from sleep to cardiovascular health, to energy, to muscle strength, to joint strength. All of that is a potential target to improve upon by natural extract. So that's what we did. So one pillar was plants and fruits and leaves. The other was vitamins and minerals.
At which point of your career did your research turn to cannabis?
How do we get into cannabis? Now, cannabis and hemp, those plants have been around. It's only 1971 that we made that plant illegal. Science literally stopped on cannabis and hemp as of 1971. Now, I actually worked with chemically synthesized pure delta-9 THC back in 1977. Since delta-9 THC is psychoactive, it should be able to recognize and affect brain cells. Question was, would it affect brain tumor cells differently? Like many of the chemotherapeutic drugs for cancer, they selectively kill the cancerous form and not the normal form. So my question was, could delta-9 THC someday become a drug to treat some forms of brain cancer? The sophisticated tools, scientific tools, simply weren't available. So after about a couple of years, I realized that since delta-9 THC is an oil, it is not water soluble. Hence, it had a great deal of difficulty getting inside of the cells to have any activity. And I also realized back then there are multiple different ways, chemical ways to make it water soluble. But then I'm no longer working with a natural molecule. 40 years later, people are still working with extracted oils from the plants. My whole thought was, since you're focusing on trying to deliver molecules for health, they needed to be in water solution. So the delivery was not a challenge or an issue. If you truly, truly want to deliver any molecule effectively, efficiently, completely, it must be in a water solution. I became a believer in plant extract because of their health benefits. And the interesting thing about cannabis and hemp was the molecules of interest are all oils, the cannabinoids, the terpenes, etc. So in 2016, 2017, when I decided to include cannabis and hemp, that became a special challenge because for the prior 12, 13 years, we had been focusing on natural plant molecules that are water soluble. I did not want to take the approach that many have taken, which is extract the oil, try to convert that into a form that can be mixed with water. Without chemical modification, an oil molecule can never be dissolved in water like, let's say, sugar or salt. And I did not want to do any chemical modification. So the only other alternative was formulation, nanoencapsulation, microencapsulation, emulsification. All of these have been around for about 50 years in the biopharmaceutical industry. I did not want to do that either, because my whole idea had been, if the molecule is not naturally water soluble, then it was not going to be part of our program. That actually in plant, there are naturally water soluble forms of cannabinoids and terpenes. Now that is not a shock, because in humans, if you think of cholesterol is an oil molecule. In our tissue, it exists as free oil. What about in our blood? the good and bad cholesterol that are discovered back in the 1980s, they are naturally water soluble. Mother Nature created, just like she created calcium that's water insoluble in bone, but calcium that's water soluble in blood, she gave us the ability to produce naturally water soluble forms of cholesterol, as well as free oil cholesterol that forms our tissue lipid layers, right? So what we found, fortunately, and this really is where you have to thank Mother Nature, is in cannabis flowers as well as trims, approximately 1/5 of the total cannabinoids exist in a naturally water-soluble form. This is a form that people had not discovered before or tried to find before or use before. So we were the first ones because we took the approach and asked the question, is there any naturally water-soluble cannabinoid? If so, what would be the method to go out and recover it from the plant? So we said we need to design a process that if there were naturally water-soluble cannabinoids, we would retain it and be able to recover it in water. So that's the patent pending process we developed. And the way we established it is we produced extracts, and these, by the way, are also whole plant extracts. Anything that was in a water-soluble form in the cannabis bud was in our water solution.
So that's the whole plant experience, as you call.
Just like when you drink tomato juice, eat a banana, you get the whole plant, whole fruit experience, all the benefits.
Okay, so there's an entourage effect for every fruit or vegetable?
Everything, every single natural product. And so, I actually frequently do not use the term entourage anymore, because especially in the cannabis industry, that term has been non-scientifically used. Frequently you hear, oh, I have a full entourage CBD. That is scientifically an inaccurate, meaningless statement. Just like, think of wine, both Cabernet grape and Merlot grape, they're both red grapes. A Cabernet wine will never be the same as a Merlot wine.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing here. Different strains of cannabis have different effects, and that's been known for at least 40, 50 years. Back in the mid-70s, when I was actively doing cancer research, a lot of cancer patients used to smoke cannabis to get rid of pain, to feel a little better, to relieve their anxiety, to improve their appetite, all of that. None of those were dependent on THC, because back then there are no high THC cannabis. They're all about 5 or 6% THC, but each strain was different, right? So we seem to have, over the last 50 years, forgotten all of that. Now we're completely focused on THC from cannabis, CBD from hemp. And to me, that was a major mistake, because I'll always be concerned about this fear of isolating a single molecule from a natural source and putting it in a regular consumer product that is not monitored.
Yes, because isolating molecules or compounds, it's a pharmaceutical practice, right? And it seems like a waste to isolate cannabis molecules as a complex plant, to use it as a pharma resource.
Exactly. Are all plants good? No, they're poisonous mushrooms. But what happens if something in its natural state is poisonous? If you isolate out a single molecule from a natural product, you really have no idea as to, in the absence of the whole context, how this one little molecule works.
And which purposes drives you to apply your research to cannabis?
I do believe that this is a plant that is very rich in potential health benefit. It can provide that both in a whole plant extract form, as well as once we can isolate single molecules, move them over to the pharmaceutical drug development procedure, could give drugs that would hopefully reduce our opiate crisis. Cannabis plant probably can provide some of the molecules that could replace opiates in some of the situations. So it's not opiates are bad drugs, it's just used too much. And other things, for example, CBD. CBD itself is a very good anti-inflammatory, which is why GW Pharma has been able to develop a formulation of that and gotten it approved to treat epileptic seizure. It's a prescription drug. They studied that molecule for over 10 years. So they know side effects, the dose, how much for this kind of epileptic seizure versus some other kind. If you look at the real clinical trial on this Epidiolex CBD, only FDA-approved CBD drug, it has kidney toxicity. Take a look at the published data, the whole study, all of the information about that drug. Now I can say maybe it's not CBD, it's the way it was formulated. You can say all of that, but we simply don't know.
Yeah, same thing with nanotechnology, right? Because it's crazy how fast is the onset time, but it works like a magic. But at the same time, we never know if there is like side effects or if there are some molecules that will remain on your body.
Because you're only monitoring one little aspect. Am I feeling good? And as you're saying, you have no idea what's happening to the liver, what's happening to the kidney. Well, is it going into my lymph glands? Is it going into my ovary? None of that is known. In fact, I'll tell you a little story about nanotechnology. AZT was the first drug approved to treat HIV. Okay, this was back in 1985, 86. There's a company in Woodlands, Texas, that developed a nano-encapsulated formulation of this drug, AZT, because the idea was if you do that, there it's exactly the opposite. Small molecules clear out of your system too quickly. So you need extended release, right? And you see all these drugs with extended release, sustained release, and stuff like that. So AZT was formulated into encapsulated form, and it worked so much better. So that was the proof that encapsulation, nano-encapsulation is really good. It works. 3 years later, what we found out, which is why it's no longer used, is that nano-encapsulated AZT primarily lodged themselves in a group of cells called macrophages in the liver. Macrophages also happen to be where the HIV virus goes and hides. So no wonder. So HIV goes into your system, and unlike many other viruses, it stays in your system. And that's the most dangerous part of it, right? So just by pure coincidence, this form of AZT ended up, without our knowledge, in the cell that harbors HIV virus. So yes, it worked amorously. I keep saying we have a very different perspective on this whole industry.
Yeah.
I want to make it happen for mental and health benefit. There is nothing wrong with being happy. I'm not anti-cannabis, anti-THC. It's a plant. It's a good plant. I always make fun of people. I say, I have a 16-year-old son. He can grow a poppy plant in his room, but if he's ever, God forbid, caught with 10 grams of marijuana, he will go to jail. Is the poppy plant safer? In fact, if somebody has a stressful day, they come home, instead of drinking down a 6-pack of beer or having 2 scotches and getting drunk, if you have just a little beverage or a little edible that uplifts your mood, relieves your stress, to me, that's almost medicine.
Yeah.
Right? But it's actually a consumer product. We are extremely conscientious about why we're doing what we're doing and what our limits are. Science has progressed, I get it, but that does not give us, at least me, the comfort that I can pull out this water-soluble THC and start putting it in beverages, simply because safety data has not been accumulated. And I am very, very afraid of this whole industry going the way it's going. People are always talking about THC. All cannabis people ever talk about, how much THC do you have? Well, have you added some terpenes? Well, that's like when somebody has a cancer. Usually, the cancer doctor picks 4 different chemotherapeutic drugs and combines them. How does it do that? Because each has 12 years worth of science and human studies and disease effects done on it. So that, and they know how much of which.
So, what would be the key benefits of applying the infusion technology to cannabis?
Multiple benefits with the water soluble, only the water soluble. In a beverage format, you can have very fast onset. Usually our onset time is less than 5 minutes, more like about 3 minutes. And it is completely gone from your system in less than 90 minutes. Frequently, it's only an hour. So it is really what the industry calls a sessionable experience. You go to lunch, have one, by the time you're done with lunch, you felt good, enjoyed it, but it has no more lingering effect, right? On the other hand, let's say we want a benefit, you have joint pain or you have sleep problems, right? Where hemp extract and some other forms of cannabis helps you sleep. Well, you don't want that to go away in an hour. So what we do there is blend the water solution with our pure whole plant oil. So it comes on quickly, but lasts the entire 4, 5, 6 hours that you're sleeping. So that's the key benefit of the infusion technology, is that it's whole plant effect. And let's not forget, there's so many wonderful genetics strains of cannabis as well as hemp. It's a shame to just pull out THC from all of these and miss out on all the other benefits. So for example, the gummies that we're now in the final stages of making in Canada, we use a blend. So ours is the only fast-acting gummy, but many of these are either CBD gummies or people take it at nighttime when they just want to remain happy for a few hours.
So, can the infusion be applied to medical products also? And in that case, what about the offset time that you mentioned that it's like 1 hour and a half?
Hour and a half, which probably is okay, because think of Advil and Tylenol. You take 2 every 4 hours. Nothing wrong with that. There are known benefits of that. Taking in one gigantic dose and hope that enough lasts for multiple hours. Medical problems and health and wellness are complex, multifactorial issues, right? It's kind of not realistic to expect a single molecule will take care of all of those, right? Which is why if everything could be treated by one form of anti-inflammatory, then there'll be only Tylenol. You need Advil, you need naproxen, right? Just again, goes to show that if you think through it, you realize, oh, that's right. There could be multiple things that's causing the problem. So why not attack it in multiple ways? And that's what's so incredible about Mother Nature and the plants. And that's why I started on plants, as I said, 15 years ago. The interesting thing is the technology to produce the water-soluble active material from most other plants is totally different from cannabis and hemp, because here it's oil. We know some of the most potent compounds are oil, so we had to develop a new technology that selectively gets out without destroying it. The beauty of naturally water-soluble is Mother Nature has given these higher organisms, plants and animals, a way to take virtually any molecule and make it water-soluble. There are multiple molecular biochemical ways that Mother Nature makes it happen. For example, going back to cholesterol, the HDL and LDL is cholesterol that's trapped inside of a shell of proteins. So the oil never gets the water, right? It's literally Mother Nature's encapsulation, but she always does it better than we do. It's kind of embarrassing in 21st century to admit that, but that happens to be true.
I see the beauty of the infusion technology as that fusion about the essence of nature by respecting its compounds as they are. And everything happens through super high end technology, with, which is developed by humans. So that controversial aspect, um, for me, is the most inspiring thing.
Thank you. And that's why it's been so rewarding, especially since we cannot do much cannabis in the US, we do industrial hemp. So we have designed one formulation with hemp extract and chamomile, lavender, magnesium, that actually helps people go to sleep. One of the proudest days of my life was, this was almost 2 years ago. A lady by the name Allison and another by the name Jacqueline, both moms of two great friends of my son. They said they have been able to get off of Ambien, which is a sleep drug. Only two people, but I was able to say, oh my God, I brought in 3-4 different natural things together. And those are the little things that always make me happy. These people mean a lot to my son. And so whatever little bit I can do, and then if I can translate that to a bigger scale, right? That's the dream. The dream is bring it back. Don't try to be completely crazy synthetic path. Respect Mother Nature. At the same time, see what you can get from where. I think one of the things that I guess age and maybe education teaches you, you have to be humble. Mother Nature is superior to anything that we would or could ever do. She has had many, many millions of years to make things happen. And how long has humans been around? Not that long.
Yeah.
So maybe someday, if we survive the pandemic and all the other stuff, maybe 2 million years later, we'll be able to do some of the stuff. We keep trying to do all kinds of strange things, but we haven't been able to. Simple as that.
So, what's the origin of the biomass?
So we purchase or we partner up with growers. So for example, in the US, we're partnering with a grower in New Jersey, and it's in that joint venture that we produce the hemp extract that goes into Kalo beverage. So now we are working with a whole bunch of cultivators in Canada who provide us with the biomass, we process, and we produce our products. So we are only staying focused on products. And as I said, there's so many fantastic strains out there. We, as a single entity, will never be able to cultivate all of those.
How many strains are you working with now?
About 16 different hemp strains. Every single one, first of all, is different. And people who are experienced smokers and users, they actually, if you give them, here is a little extract, tell me what it is. Experienced people can tell, oh, this came from a Gorilla Glue. It feels like Gorilla Glue. So experienced people actually can tell the difference.
And what about fungicides and pesticides? Does it influence on the final product?
Our vendors for biomass grow them either indoor or they limit pesticides to the organic ones. Fungus, mold, yeast, and organisms like that, our processing actually destroys those. And so as a result, unless it's really bad, modest levels of yeast or fungus contamination in the biomass doesn't affect the final product. Because we take the final product to a full testing, just like any botanical extract in this country or up in Canada. There's a whole set of regulations of what all need to be tested in any cannabis derived product.
So you make the oil after, but using the same biomass.
Yes. So you recover about 1/4 of all of the cannabinoids in water, about almost 3/4 in oil, but that still leaves behind residual biomass because at the end of the day, it's just like making cane juice from sugar canes, right? After you squeeze out everything, there is still the bagasse that's left.
Okay. And do you have some sustainability practices like in Infusion Biosciences or Sproutly?
Sproutly is a little bit difficult because all we are doing is making finished product.
Mm-hmm.
And the regulations in Canada, other than hemp, is such that I believe anything more than 0.1% THC left in the processed biomass makes it a controlled substance. So it should ideally be used as a fertilizer, literally loosens up the biomass. And now it's a great source of nutrient. And unfortunately, as of now, because of the regulations, it's been very difficult to recycle what I would call the spent biomass, but there is nothing worthwhile left, but they can be fantastic animal feed or fertilizer.
Yeah, that would be perfect. But actually, to be in compliance with the Canadian regulations, you must destroy the plant material waste, right?
In Canada, you have to destroy it. You have to certify that it's destroyed. Destruction has to be done by a certified third party.
Okay, so by destroying, you mean burn?
Literal incineration into ashes. I think a lot of this will change. The problem is, for about 40 or 50 years, we have treated it like a curse, like a devil. And that, from a practical perspective, that is so illogical. Because of the stigma and the fear, you go through processes, treatments, and kind of feelings that are very, very illogical. So I'm hoping that will change.
Yeah, we can only hope that regulations will evolve as well as people's mind, right?
Sometimes, we are our worst enemies.
Dr. Sen, thank you very much for your time. It was
Thank
a
you.
huge pleasure and an inspiration to talk to you. I hope we can talk more some other day.
Absolutely. Great. Yeah,
And
because we should be making more materials. I finally should be able to travel again after August 9th. So we are going to start pushing up our extract production. We're already making gummies. We have down here done a lot of beverage formulation, which I'm going to implement up there in Sproutly. So hopefully by end of August or mid-September, I would like to invite you, come and enjoy some beverage and some gummies.
I would love to. I would love
Great.
to.
Great.
With great pleasure. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a pleasant evening.
You too. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.